Carmilla, Chapter 10. Bereaved. It is about 10 months since we had last seen him, but the time had sufficed to make an alternation of years in his appearance. He had grown thinner, something of a gloom and anxiety had taken the place of what cordial serenity which used to characterize his features. His dark blue eyes, always quite penetrating, now gleamed with a sterner light from under his shaggy grey eyebrows. It was not such a change as grief alone ever usually indulges, and angrier passions seemed to have had their share in bringing it about. He had not long resumed our drive when the general began to talk, with his usual soldierly directness, of the bereavement, as he termed it, which he had sustained in the death of his beloved niece and his ward. And he then broke out in a tone of intense bitterness and quite fury, inveighing against the hellish arts to which he had fallen a victim, and expressing, with more exasperation than piety, his wonder that heaven should ever tolerate so monstrous an indulgence of the lusts and malignity of hell. My father, who saw at once that something quite extraordinary had befallen, asked him, if not too painful, to detail the circumstances which he thought justified the very strong terms in which he had expressed himself. "I should tell you all with pleasure," said the general, "but you would not believe me." "Why should I not?" he asked. "Because," he answered testily, "you believe in nothing but what consists with your own prejudices and illusions. I remember when I was quite like you, but I have now since learned better." "Try me," said my father. "I am not such a dogmatist as you suppose." "Besides which, I very well know that you generally require proof for what you believe, and am, therefore, very strongly predisposed to respect your conclusions." "You are right in supposing that I have not been led lightly into a belief in the marvelous, for what I have experienced is of the marvelous nature, and have been forced by extraordinary evidence to credit that which ran counter, quite diametrically, to all my theories. I have been made the dupe of a preternatural conspiracy." Notwithstanding his professions of confidence in the general's penetration, I saw my father at this point glance at the general, with, as I thought, a marked suspicion of his sanity. The general did not see it, luckily. He was looking quite gloomily and curiously into the glades and vista of the woods that were opening before us. "You are going to the ruins of Karnstein," he said. "Yes, it's quite a lucky coincidence. Do you know, I was going to ask you to bring me there to inspect them. I have a special object in exploring. There is a ruined chapel with a great many tombs of that extinct family." "So there are. Highly interesting," said my father. "I hope you're thinking of claiming the title and estates." My father said this quite gaily, but the general did not recollect the laugh, or even the smile which courtesy exacts for a friend's joke. On the contrary, he looked grave and even quite fierce, ruminating out a matter that stirred his anger and horror. "Something quite different," he said gruffly. "I mean to unearth some of those fine people. I hope, by God's blessing, to accomplish a pious sacrilege here, which will relieve our earth of certain monsters, and enable honest people to sleep in their beds without being assailed by murderers. I have strange things to tell you, my dear friend, such as I myself would have scouted as incredible a few months since." My father looked at him again, but this time not with a glance of suspicion, with an eye, rather, of keen intelligence and quite alarm. "The house of Karnstein," he said, "has long been extinct, 100 years at least. My dear wife was maternally descended from the Karnsteins, but the name and title have long ceased to exist. The castle is ruined, the very village deserted. It is 50 years since the smoke of a chimney was seen there, not a roof left." "Oh, quite true. I've heard a great deal about that since I last saw you, a great deal that will astonish you. But I had better relate everything in the order in which it occurred, said the general. You saw my dear ward, my child, I may call her. No creature could have been more beautiful, and only 3 months ago none more blooming. Oh yes, poor thing. When I saw her last she certainly was quite lovely, said my father. I was grieved and shocked more than I can tell you, my dear friend. I know what a blow it was to you. He took the general's hand, and they exchanged a kind pressure. Tears gathered in the old soldier's eyes. He did not even seek to conceal them. We have been very old friends. I knew you would feel for me, childless as I am. She had become an object of very near interest to me, and repaid my care by an affection that cheered my home and made my life and old bones happy. But that is all gone. The years that remain to me on earth may not be very long, but by God's mercy I hope to accomplish a service to mankind before I die, and to subserve the vengeance of heaven upon the fiends who have murdered my poor child in the spring of her hopes and beauty. You said just now that you intend to relate everything as it occurred, said my father. Pray do. I assure you there is not mere curiosity that prompts me. By this time we had reached the point in which the Drunsdale road, by which the general had come, diverges from the main, which we were travelling to Karnstein. How far is it to the ruins? Inquired the general, looking anxiously forward. About 1/2 league, answered my father. Pray, let us hear the story you were so good as to promise.